to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is entrepreneur and Abraham Hicks fan Louis D'Souza. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And unfortunately, our friend Amy Blackford can't be with us today. She's got a family function that she's dealing with, but that's okay because we also have a special guest joining us today. Brent Howell is directly involved with the TIA. Everybody should know that I know that TIA is what it is because I've been talking about it for the last week. No, he's a member of the TIA Facebook group, and in fact, he plays a very interesting role. He actively welcomes new members to the group, and he helps them guide them in the group so that they can get the most out of participating in the TIA resources, which is a pretty great thing for him to do. I mean, you pretty much do that on a volunteer basis, don't you, Brent?
Well, I do. I volunteered to do it, and I feel very passionate about. I once heard the saying, "Be who you needed when you were growing up." Okay, so does that hit home?
Sure.
That's the role that I play with welcoming newcomers to the Facebook group. Really. Just a very nice welcome and work to try to identify what they have in mind, what they're looking for, if they are actually really looking for improvement in themselves, and possibly even going the whole route of getting into boot camp. So I cherish my role and especially the ability to just be a friendly voice, even though it's either by email or Facebook Messenger, sometimes on the phone. I just really cherish the role to be another friendly voice because of what I have found with the TIA group and the Stream of David.
Sounds good. So we're going to go into that in greater detail. Now, our audience has quite a bit of exposure to TIA, both through having David on the show directly, because he was a co-host for a few months there, and did a lot of Stream of David streams, so we got to experience that. Louis, I know you have some awareness of the Stream of David and TIA, but not a whole lot.
I'm just wondering if he's a car tire salesman or something.
No, you do have experience with it. He's the one who you were asking the universal questions. The one who channels the stream very similar to Esther Hicks channeling Abraham.
But what's TIA got to do with that?
TIA is his. It's basically the business side of what he does. It's a combination of coaching, and it's a group thing, and you get direct reading with the stream, and it's like it's this whole package. There's a bunch of modules that you study. It's basically all about taking yourself to the next level of your own development, and so that's what TIA is all about.
I was unaware.
Yeah. So now you're up to speed. And so let's go back to Brent. Brent, tell us a little bit more about how you ended up getting into TIA in the first place.
All right, very good. Let's back up a little bit even further to TIA, Walt. Let's go back to why was I even attracted to law of attraction? Okay.
Fair question.
Let's go back even further than that. My whole life I have known and had a sense that behind everything that happens, everything that we're involved with, whether it's good or bad, just life in general, I've always really felt that there is a layer of spiritual energy that is just beyond what we can see with our eyes and what we can perceive. But I have just always known that for everything that happens, there is a spiritual equation behind it. And only recently cracked that code. When I was let's say a mid to late teenager, I was introduced to Neville Goddard and his book Feeling is the Secret.
Right.
And real close to that message, feeling is the secret, is very close to what David presents as the equation for bringing matter into reality. through believing. As a matter of fact, David and I had a short conversation over who's right.
Oh, okay.
So I have acquiesced that it's which comes first, believing or feeling, or feeling then believing. But they really go hand in hand. Emotion is the energy of creation. So there's your feeling. Now, well, I have been in sales my entire professional life, adult life, and it's true. Sales is feast or famine, and I had several years, many years that were feast, and you just rock right along because everything's going really smooth. But how much do you learn when you're fat and happy? Okay. So let's go back probably about 10 years ago from this point, maybe about, let's say 2010, 2011. You and I know now that a person's mindset really just directly affects what comes to them in this world. Not necessarily what we attract. It is what we attract, but it's just what comes to you. Your mindset affects that very strongly. And I had some job situations that weren't productive, and that wasn't fun. My father passed away in 2011, and that really knocked me off my wheels for at least 2 or 3 years.
Oh my!
And
wow.
yeah, and well, with me being a constant digger, just a constant, what's the code? What's the equation? What do I not have right here? What am I not understanding? Because I knew, and I was even out of work for 18 months in that time. And at 50 years old, that'll rock your world.
Sure.
That'll, you're still alive. You're still waking up every morning, but you're out of work. So I knew that the difference between success and despair really was as thin as a sheet of paper. It was just that thin. So about 3 years ago, and of course now at that point, let's say early 2010 or so, I discovered Abraham Hicks, and the teachings and the truths were not that foreign to me. In fact, they felt very familiar. Where have I heard this before? even though I hadn't really, other than the Neville Goddard readings. So I rocked along with Abraham Hicks for at least 3 or 4 years, and didn't gain the mindset that what you think and what you feel controls what comes to you. All right. So 3 years ago, almost about this time of year, late winter, early spring, 3 years ago, I was looking for something to listen to on a podcast, and I searched Manifest. And here came the Stream of David. And it just popped up, and I thought, well, okay, let's see what this is. And the streaming thing, the channeling thing, I wasn't going to let that freak me out, because who am I? Okay, Esther channels, all right, and I was very familiar with that, and really enjoyed the truths that Abraham brings. It made sense. So I applied that logic to David in the stream, and it really just began clicking. Now, what was interesting with David was with the way he communicates and with the way he presents, he was verbalizing thoughts that had been in my mind my whole life. And I have heard other folks that have joined our group, the community, say the same thing. It's just like he puts into words what I've been hearing my whole life, and that's just cool. So after listening to David maybe 60 or 90 days, I decided to explore the boot camp. And Louis, when Walt was describing Taya, David Strickle does have his channeling of the source called the Stream of David, and that brings truth. I've
been on your show, so I'm aware of that aspect. That's just
there we go. Good.
Aspect. Yeah.
Good. So in the last 10 years, the stream helped David create a process for learning. And David canonized that and formalized that to call it boot camp, Taya boot camp, Taya process.
By the way,
and
Taya stands for trust your abundance, just so you know what the acronym is.
Exactly, trust your abundance.
Yeah, that's
and
a good thing to say.
the way that I describe the Taya process is it's self-improvement. Okay. I have also had an energy inside me as long as I can remember finding my first bookstore, going in and looking for self-improvement. So, even 10, 11, 12 years old, we'd go to the mall and you'd find me at Dalton Books in the self-improvement section.
Now you're dating yourself because a lot of people don't even know who Dalton Books is anymore. So
I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose because you and I both have gray hair.
That's right.
Even I know what it is. I've also got gray hair. Yeah.
One or two.
I talked to David on the phone about the boot camp and came to the realization very quickly that if I'm to open this door and discover the treasures that are inside of me, I need to go through boot camp. So I did. And, it's normally supposed to be about a 8-week course. I took 12 weeks or more, but it changed my life. As David likes to say, it'll give you a new operating system up here. And it did. So we can talk further about that, but that's my journey to becoming involved with the Taya community.
Well, awesome. Go ahead, Louis. I was just going to say, I've gotten to know Taya pretty well, so I'm going to see what Louis wants to ask to learn more about it, because he's less informed than I am at this point.
I understand the idea of a boot camp and helping people understand the basics of LOA and helping them manifest what they want, etc. So, I can visualize possibly what it's like. But I'm more interested in Brent's journey himself. So that's curious. I mean, at the age of 12, so I was consciously looking to understand life, the universe, and everything at the age of 8. So I admire anybody who's also at that young age was looking to find answers in the bookstore, like I was. I went to the local library in a small little town in South Africa, and I pretty much read every book that was about life, the universe, and everything, and mind control and spirituality, and hypnosis, self-hypnosis, etc. And I had a field day there, and I remember the lady behind the desk shaking her head every time I took out another book on some weird subject.
Oh, here comes that kid again.
Yeah, it was either espionage, how to kill somebody, mind control,
chemistry experience.
I wasn't the normal kid. She did seem to keep it to herself because I don't think it ever got back to my dad. But yeah, no, it's the journey that I always love listening to the stories of different people of what they bumped into and how they started discovering their journey to And I think you phrased it very well. You talked about it, the journey to discovering your non-physicality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That part of you which you sensed is there, but our society and our upbringing doesn't quite put much or if any attention on the non-physical side of us. So it's kind of really a more personal journey that we have to discover and find things, and it's a fun one. It's a really good one.
I like the fact also. I also like the fact, Brett, that when you were describing it, you didn't use the word that I would use, but you talked about how deeply it resonated with you. The more that you heard about this non-physical side, you said yes, and that's what all of us were involved in this kind of thing. So,
good.
Oh my God, yeah. How could we have missed this all these years?
You're right, and the David likes to call that part of us, the non-physical part of us. Actually, that's source. Source is in us. Absolutely. And I will tell you, I have had so far to go in my journey, and I continue to have so much further to go, that I am working on improving that connection to source within me, so that I truly feel it and know that it's there. Mm-hmm. I'm still progressing out of decades of depression and feeling of lack of confidence and failure. I'm talking decades for that, because that was part of my makeup for some reason. Also, almost all of my life was just, I'm just not hitting the mark, So anyway, go ahead, Louis. But you're talking about, I have felt that desire to explore and desire to improve and to learn. And I never imagined anything that I have found with the Taya process that the source has brought. I've never imagined that. I always thought that, you'll live this life not getting answers to things, and then you'll die. Okay, I was resigned to that, but I had to keep looking, and I crossed paths with it.
Yeah, what I love about the journey is, first of all, you do have that experience where, I don't know if I'll ever learn anything. I mean, you're ever going to know the answer to life, the universe, and everything besides that it's 42. So you go there and you've got this complete blank, and then it starts filling in some of the blanks, and then you get to the stage where you become more enlightened and aware, and you start becoming an excellent manifester and all the rest of it. And then you start realizing that you've only started the journey. It's like the tip of the iceberg now. And there's so much that you don't know. It's just unbelievable. It's so massive. The amount you know is minuscule, and how much you don't know is, infinite. And you start realizing that this journey is never going to end, and you're going to be an endless seeker, and you're going to be fulfilled along the way, but you're just going to be more and more fulfilled, and you're going to expand more and more and more, and it's just going to continue. And I kind of like coming to that stage that I have now, that endless open-endedness of endless expansion, and that's so cool to me.
Hey, Louis, I just wanted to give you a little heads up. Your volume's a little bit on the soft side. I know that's been an issue, so I thought I'd let you know, just so you can deal with it there. Todd put an interesting comment into the live stream section. I'm going to throw it up there, see what you guys think. He said, just be careful about opening up your Pandora box by going too far inward. And when I read that, my thought was, can you really go too far inward? I'm curious. What do you think about that, Brent?
Oh, okay. Well, here's my take on that. And I have no idea the perspective that Todd's coming from. So, on the face of his comment, Pandora box, that's Pandora's. The story of Pandora's box is not a pleasant thing.
No.
So we're assuming that Todd is expressing beware of something not good and unhealthy. Okay, let's put it this way. Part of what David has described in his personal experience, and also with what the stream brings, is David lived in a house in Seattle for a number of years. and very unpleasant, haunted type experiences began happening there. Very real chandeliers falling from the ceiling, landing on the floor, things that were just very real. And he will admit, I attracted those things. So we have to, he had to clear and remove all of that. I've not had any experience with that sort of thing. I don't want any experience with that.
You mean you're sane? Is that what you're trying to tell us? I mean, come
on. And I don't know what it was about David that attracted that, other than that I know that he was continuing to explore Source, and he was continuing to learn how to communicate with Source. Okay. All right. I appreciate Todd's expression. Not really sure what point he wants to try to communicate as far as letting in something that is not good, not pleasant. I don't know. I have learned with my Taya process, learning how to identify the connection to Source. Mm-hmm. Learning to identify that connection to Source feels like, oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. This feels so good. It makes sense. It's just a wholesome feeling when you make that connection to the next lesson that Source wants you to learn. So that's what I pay attention to. If something doesn't really feel like it nourishes me, I don't pay attention.
He threw up some extra information. He says, I could definitely share a ton of information with you. He says, I'm a special reader kind of a person. Or using a tool, using a dowsing rod, I broke the veil. Ooh, okay.
I don't care to go there.
I don't blame you. So we won't force you. We won't hold your hands to the fire. I'll throw in my own take on that. Louis, feel free to jump in if you want to as well. My own take is the Source connection is actually a connection to what Abraham calls our inner being, and I like that particular term.
Okay.
And I think that's accurate. And one of the nice things about the inner being is that you can be 100% certain that your inner being is 100% on your side. Okay. Totally. Even when you don't want them to be. But they are always looking out for your highest good. That's just Source energy is high vibration. So they can't be anything else. Now, we can disagree with our inner being, but that's us disagreeing. That's not the inner being in any way leading us astray or anything like that.
That's ego.
Well, yeah, exactly. Sure. So that's why I'm not terribly concerned about going too deep into inner being, because I don't think you really can. Now, what could happen, I guess, is that if you try to connect with inner being and you end up getting stuck in the ego process and thinking that that's inner being, that could lead you astray. I could see that happening. But the actual connection itself, I wouldn't worry about that. I think that would be actually pretty safe.
Okay. But I do appreciate Todd commenting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did you want to throw anything in, Louis?
Yeah. How's my mic?
It's fading and coming in. It's like it's doing a little volume thing where it just kind of volumes up and volumes down.
I really don't know what to do with this. I might have to get a new mic altogether.
It worked in nicely when you last week when you brought it in closer. Maybe that'll help. I don't know.
I'm really close to it. I'm almost.
Are you? Well, swallow it.
Yeah. and I've upped the volume and the booster. But so what I find is that when people are digging into things, now Todd has used the words and have a lot of information. What's the word he used? Pandora's box. So what happens is when you're looking at a subject or subjects and you're going into them in more and more and more depth, okay, you can easily get lost. Because if you take, let's say, the coronavirus and the vaccines, and you break it down to cellular level, and then you break it down to, is it working on this genetics with this group of people or that group of people, And so you go on and on and on. If you go down there, it does become a huge Pandora box. It becomes something that is so big that you can never get out of. You can split it up and split it up and break it down and break it down. And you often hear conversations like this where people are just getting lost. But if you take it up the other way to the oneness and the wholeness, then it becomes simpler and simpler and simpler. And you start saying, yeah, we're all one. And your thoughts create your reality. And when you focus on what you want and not what you don't want, you get more of that. And then you're bringing it now to its simplicity, and you're taking it up the vibrational scale instead of down into the Maya, which can really throw you. And if you are looking at Pandora's box, or you're getting worried about going into your inside, then you're not going in there balancedly.
Good point.
You're not going in there balancedly at all. You're going in there with expectations of something going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Instead of knowing that Source has always got your back, and it's a knowingness, as a serious understanding that Source has always got your back. And then you relax into that, and then there is no worry about how big the Pandora box is, because believe me, if you really want to look at Source, it is the biggest Pandora box there is. But it's always got your back. It's something you kind of get to know. And you can just relax into it, and you can express and feel and live and trust. And it's a different world, you just feel so empowered, and knowing that, because it's always got your back, where you're putting your focus, where you're putting your mind, where you're putting your thoughts and your attention, it's going to expand it, and off you're going to go. And you've got control of that aspect. And It really is fairly easy. So, yes, I can understand that whole intellectual thing. That's why I've never had too much time for the intellect on a whole, the way mankind has used it up to now. Because if you break down the intellect, it's kind of got two sides to it. We kind of think as Westerners that we're intellectual if we've got a lot of knowledge, where really all the knowledge we ever wanted is kind of on the internet at the moment. So it's not the knowledge that's important. It's your ability to think and make logical and common sense understanding of all this knowledge that's out there. Now, that is of great importance. Your wisdom that comes out of it all, your ability to perceive, understand, and move forward with what you've got around you. So it's when I'm looking at intelligence now, true intelligence is the ability to use common sense clearly and understand things. Just focus on one thing for, let's say, 5 minutes. What was that guy, Carnegie? He became so big and so successful in America that the American government brought him around a table, and they sat and they chatted to him, and he said, you must have been cheating. You must be doing something bad. He said, no, the reason why I'm so successful is I'm able to spend 5 minutes focus on one subject. And they said, oh, come on, that's easy, and all the rest of it. So he did an experiment, and none of them could hold it for more than 30 seconds. And he said, you should all be thrown out of government and get people who can so you need to be able to get to that stage where Abram talks as step one, which is focus on what you want. And then it starts falling into place.
There's an interesting story, and I'm sure that I can find references for this, but the story, as I remember it, is at an event one time, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Warren Buffett were together in a cocktail party, standing around talking, and a person in their vicinity asked them, what is the greatest key to success? And they all simultaneously said, focus. And that was a lesson to me. And that's exactly what Lewis is talking about as well, is focus.
So the addition that Abraham Hicks gives you is understanding step 3. So you can have this really clear focus over there in the distance, all right? But if you've got a lot of obstacles in your way, you're going to trip over them trying to get to it, even though you've got a clear picture. So getting relief and release and clearing that path as well, which is the combination. So you get your focus, and then you release and relief and release at step 3. So that really helped me with the Abraham Hicks things to understand the extra step in there about just letting go, cleaning away all the debris so that you don't trip over anything getting to your goal.
That letting go is huge. And David, or rather, I'm thinking about David Strickle. Brent, what you alluded earlier to the depression you went through. I've gone through my own long period of depression as well. And when you're in that period of depression, you don't fully grasp and appreciate how important it is to climb the vibrational scale, the way Abraham talks about. It doesn't even enter your sphere of influence because, well, first of all, it's way beyond your reach because you're in depression. And second of all, it seems impossible. It seems like that just can't be done. So that becomes the basis for a lot of really interesting conversations here on the show. We've talked about that in a lot of different ways. I want to talk about it right now in terms of Taya, because Taya is certainly one way.
Hey, I've heard our group of folks, the Taya leaders recently described the haze of depression. And I like that term because it is like being in a fog or being in just a lot of smoke and you can't see your way through it. Let's think here. I knew enough. Let's say I knew enough 5, 6, 7 years ago. I knew enough because this was after I was unemployed for 18 months. And, and being unemployed came as a result of a change in technology. I've always been in sales and I've always focused on technical content, technical products and issues. And technology changes. So I was in an industry that dissolved due to technology. The American book, Who Moved My Cheese, focuses that.
That's right.
All right. So I was starting over at a job, $40,000, I think, which was a fraction of what I'd been making previously. In a car that had been given to me. But every day I'm driving to this job and I'm driving back home focusing on, I will have a job that pays $50,000 constantly, all the way there and all the way. So I knew a tool to focus on. Still being very depressed, very lack of confidence, very completely aimless in what's the way out of this. Okay. So I progressed along through a few jobs, got fired a couple of times again because of technology. We don't need this role anymore. You're not fired, but the company is eliminating this position. Oh, okay, I got fired. So 3 years ago when I ran across and then jumped into the Taya boot camp, and it is, it's very intense. It's a lot of work to go inside. And David and the other coaches, they don't cut any slack because you will not make the progress forward until you land on and identify, and to me, they call them transgressors, to identify the cause of the language that says you'll never succeed, you'll never be successful, why try? Just all the negative over and over, the negative talk that never leaves. Until you identify where that came from, you can't progress forward, or the Taya process teaches you to detune that or to completely neutralize the effect. And Walt, I read your comment where you said that you are looking forward to identifying your unseen transgressors. Amen, brother. It's going to happen. my
Well, I've been doing it for
transgressors.
years, but it's like I don't seem to run out of them. So I'm looking forward to, like, maybe I can get the rest of them out of the way. That'd be nice,
Well, let's hope there aren't as many as Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So, but yes, turning your ear to not what the voice says, but where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where you start to go back and identify that one comment that somebody said when you were in 8th grade that cut you to the core.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have forgotten what they said, but you remember the pain, and that scar still generates the negative self-talk. So I had a lot of unseen transgressors, and let's see here, I became very active with the Taya community as far as those of us who help Taya exist day to day. I became very involved with that earlier this year, when after I got through boot camp in about September of 2019, I left the group. You join base camp after that as a graduate, and I just completely cut myself off from the group, and I said, okay, I've got my toolbox here. Let's try these tools. And I tried to use them for about a year, and I failed because I didn't use them all. I didn't meditate. I didn't set an intention daily, first thing in the morning. There's just so many tools that I ignored because I thought, oh, I got this. I can, I'll make this work. It failed. So late last year, I got back in touch with a friend who was in boot camp with me, and I said, hey, I'm doing something wrong. And after she asked me a few questions, she says, you're doing everything wrong. because you're not doing anything. And I was holding the mindset.
I think.
Yeah, I was trying to hold the mindset of being successful. I was falling back on what you feel is what you create. No, it's more than what you believe. You have to engage yourself with the tools that daily strip away the old to create room for the new, for you to expand and move forward into your reality that's closer to source. All right. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Sure. It makes sense to me. Yeah. I mean, that's
perfect.
Basically what I've been doing for the last, 8, 9, 10, 12 years. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I got very connected earlier on this year, and it worked so well. It just, Walt and Lewis, just for the peace of mind, just for being able to wake up and not be depressed, and to know what to keep on my mind all day long to go in the direction that I want to go into. That was one of the greatest things that I've been seeking all my life, was what do I hold in my mind to get what I want? And the Taya process made that clear to me, and it's a very effective set of tools and an exercise.
It's a very valuable
effective
insight.
Exercise.
It's a very valuable insight to even get that message, to even get that idea that you need to have that implementation. You need to adopt the kinds of things they talk about in Taya. Just because if you don't adopt, you're basically where you were all along. You haven't actually moved anywhere. You got to make change. You got to make growth.
Well, it worked for me. And the stream likes to say that it will work for everyone, but we know good and well that self-empowerment, self-improvement, self-discovery is not for everyone. So not everybody's going to, it's just not the path for everybody, and that's okay. That's fine. I don't care. I've hitched my wagon to the Taya lesson because it resonates with me. All right. it rings true to me. And because of that, I know that I can help communicate it to other people. And that's the greatest passion I have now, is to help others that it resonates with, to exploit it, to take advantage of it and exploit it, and you go your own path. And for anyone that is in the Taya Facebook group, there's a broad Taya Facebook group that's got over 3,000 members in it. Every day there are posts by those of us that have gone through boot camp about daily what our discoveries are, and what the thought process was, what our thought process was yesterday, and you had an aha moment, or you just, something else made sense and it clicked. And daily people are putting those comments on the page because it just feels so good. They are there for anyone to read and see how the Taya process is helping folks. So
essentially what you're talking about is telling personal stories.
Yes.
And personal stories are extremely powerful. We love them. We tell stories all the time here, both our own stories, and we share stories from our experiences with other people and so forth.
Okay.
And the stories are wonderful. First of all, because we as a species just love stories. Storytelling has been ingrained in our species since the beginning of human time, so to speak.
I'm sure Brent knows the saying as a salesman, facts tell, stories sell.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
That's exactly the way it works. So that part makes a tremendous amount of sense, that the storytelling is going to be that effective. And I am a member of the broader group. I've already seen some of the stuff going on there. And you're right, it's actually kind of similar to a lot of the things we talk about here on the show. So in that sense, there's a definite sense of familiarity, if you will.
And there's a lot of symbiosis, where you symbiotic type effect, where someone that's a completely different person, completely different gender, completely different part of the world will come up with an understanding, and I'm like, whoa, and that will open that little part of my mind to, whoa, I never thought about that. That's cool.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fun as well.
It is fun. That's where a lot of the joy comes from, in being what I call a conscious creator, because that's really what we're talking about here. You know, I mean, there's so much joy in connecting with other people and finding out they have the same thought I had just yesterday, or 3 weeks ago, or a year ago, or I haven't had just yet, or whatever. But it all resonates. It resonates and resonates and resonates. And the more you get that resonation, the more you realize, wow, we really are all connected. We really are all source energy. All this stuff really is true.
And what I enjoy, and this is exactly why I've placed myself in the position where I have with the company, is each person that goes through boot camp, David, in order to generate some content and to share some of the information, David will interview folks, what, like you have. Where were you before? What led you to? What was your experience? And there was a mother who lost her teenage son to a shooting, and she has found peace in her heart with the tool. There was another lady that when she came to Taya, she was a single mother that was homeless. Now she's a professional and has a degree, college degree, but for whatever reason, the circumstances at that time led her to be without a roof over her head.
Right.
And those are delicious stories to hear, and to hear and go. And well, another reason that I have committed myself to this path is the folks that bring themselves into the Taya boot camp program are mostly female. Okay, it's 80-90%. Okay, and there have been men that have come through boot camp, but I've not heard anyone share the story that I bring about having decades of depression, despair, haze of not knowing which way to go, feeling of failure, just all that stuff for a successful professional man.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just convinced that there's more like me out there. And
I think
I'm
that's
hoping,
very safe to say. Very, very safe.
and I'm hoping my role, I'm hoping that my role is I can help bring some of those guys in. It says, come on, guys. It's not horrible. Life can be wonderful, but we got to leave all that baggage behind us. And that's a lot of baggage.
Yeah, leave the baggage behind, jump in the water. It's great, you know.
Yeah. And learning how to let go and make it stay gone.
It helps to know that the baggage is simply thoughts, and it's thoughts that you don't want. It's thoughts about things that you don't want. That's all the baggage is. It's nothing else.
Right.
They become active vibrations as you think about them over time.
That's exactly right. That's the point I was making, is it's not here and now unless I bring it up here and now.
Mm-hmm.
If I leave it back there, it's going to dry up and wither away.
And it's annoying, actually, because we like to believe that, well, it's not my thoughts doing it. It's I'm a victim of circumstance. Things have happened to me. It wasn't me doing all of this. And then when we learned that, it really was us. It's like, oh, damn, I can't get away with anything anymore.
I read a book right before, or I would say 6 to 8 months before I discovered the Stream of David. And I believe it was by Joe Dispenza, but I'm not sure. But it deals with how to change your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And that served me very well. That set me up to be able to go into the Taya and just make a clean cut, because that's work, buddy. To let those long living thought habits, and that's all they are. It's a chemical stream running in your brain that's a thought habit, and the more you run it, the more you feed it, the more you fire it, and you have to learn how to change direction away from that thought habit and not continue to fire it. If you fire it, you wire it. That was another book that was critical to preparing me for this experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, all this stuff. I've been doing this show now for almost 9 years. Actually, this coming Friday will be episode number 1500, which is a nice milestone to reach.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it blows my mind, to be perfectly honest, and I did all of them. And all of that journey has been about one thing, exactly what you just talked about, rewiring my brain and encouraging others to rewire their brains to literally spend all of, or as much as my attention and focus and energy as I can on what I like instead of what I don't like, on what I want instead of what I don't want, on what I enjoy rather than what I don't enjoy, and so on. It's so freaking simple, and yet I've done 1,500 episodes on it.
And how long? And we're still learning to do it, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. This is
look at the gray hair on this screen, and
it's scary, really, when you think about it.
We're still learning.
I'm still learning from the guy who's over to your right, to your left, actually, because I mean, he claims that he has gray hair. I don't see it. I mean,
I love my camera.
Where do I get one of those?
Yeah, right. Yes. So he's actually a master at eliminating gray hairs, I'd have to say. But that's been the other beauty of doing this show. I have had the privilege of interviewing and talking with a lot of really great fellow students on the path. All of whom had wonderful things to teach me along the way. And I think that's where the greatest advantage of something like a Thai boot camp comes in, because you connect in with like-minded people who are all pretty much on the same path, pretty much going in the same direction, different degrees of, this person's a little further ahead, that person's not quite there, and so forth. But you're all pretty much going in the same direction. And that reminds me directly of the Napoleon Hill concept from Think and Grow Rich, the mastermind. Because that's really what Thai boot camp is. It's a mastermind. It's a massive mastermind. What we do here on the show, that's also a form of mastermind.
Correct.
And it's incredibly powerful. It's one of those powerful things that you don't even realize how powerful it is until you're in the middle of it. When you first approach it, you say, well, yeah, okay, that's just a bunch of people hanging out talking about stuff. But then you get into it and you realize this stuff really is actually powerful, and it's more powerful when you do it with somebody else. It's really, really amazing how that works.
It's so fun, and I hadn't heard anyone verbalize the thoughts that had been in my mind the way until I met David. So that was really cool. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, wow, it's time. It's time. This is an idea whose time has come. So it's here. And I hadn't met that many other seekers either of this type. Okay. I've not been in other groups or communities because I'm just a real solo guy. And there's no one in my realm of acquaintances that, really like to not push the envelope, but just pierce it with all your might, because that's the way I seek. It's just push. And you have to learn also how to not push need either. If you want to push and explore, find the right thing to push and explore. I learned that lesson also over the last 10 years about creating need, pushing need, exploring need. And David says, the universe says, you're right, have some more. You're right, have some more, have some more. It'll never run out. So it's like, oh, darn, stupid. Gotta learn.
My favorite phrase that goes along with that is, oh, I did it again.
haven't heard that one, but it's true.
It's what it feels like. Oh, I just did it again. I can't believe I did it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm glad that it's given you so much growth and satisfaction to have that particular path. Yeah.
Well, not direction. Being depressed, for so long, and having clear depression, you realize how energizing and just liberating that feels. It's just like, I'm not on the wrong path. I know I'm not on the wrong path. That's a big deal.
It is.
And
I'm going to ask you something about something else too, because this is a thing that comes up a lot.
Okay. Wow.
Particularly among people who've had really rough times they've gone through, what they call the dark night of the soul kind of things.
Okay.
And certainly extended depression fits that role to a T. I have found over and over again by interviewing such individuals that when they come out, when they kind of like the analogy of a springboard in a swimming pool, when they bounce off that springboard, they tend to fly higher than the people who didn't reach that deep dark night of the soul. And I'm curious, do you find that was true for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. You've touched on a knee-jerk reaction that I've taught myself to not compare myself to others, because when you compare yourself to others, who's the loser? Who's the one that's going to lose? Me. But absolutely. If you're not I believe that it's part of being a seeker, just a nonstop, continuous seeker. I believe that it's part of it is going through the not finding what you want, and being frustrated, or even to the point of depression. But to your question, I absolutely am grateful for where my journey has brought me. I did not enjoy what I went through, but I'm not going to worry about that. I appreciate where I am now and what brought me to this point. And I'm every day I'm like, who can I help? Who can I help? You know, who can I bring in and help pull that veil off of their eyes and their heart. Because see, it's not just your mind, it's just, you've got to release the desire and appetite for hope and being happy. Okay.
You have to give yourself permission for that, actually.
There's a saying in Taya that it helps you to learn clarity, abundance, and joy. And on our Facebook group post yesterday, one of our coaches placed the open-ended question, do you feel joy? And a lot of us are saying not yet, because we are still just gaining ground on where we are. Okay. And early on in the boot camp course, after you're in it for 2 or 3 weeks, you think, oh, I got this. You know, it's like, oh. And then I would be upset and disappointed because I wouldn't feel joy. Well, I have decided to feel content. I'm happy to feel content. And I'm good with that.
Good.
So
yeah.
If I get to the joy point, it will be because of someone else that I've helped. That's what's going to raise that balloon to its highest level.
I mean, to go to the Abraham Hicks concept of the emotional guidance scale, okay, you're at the point of basically of acceptance. So you're going to go to the next step, whatever that next step is. And you're just going to keep climbing one step at a time. And eventually you get to joy because, well, you're not all that far from the top at this point. That's the good part. You know,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. And,
you know, you've also learned, as we've heard all our lives, take it a day at a time. That's all we have. This right now is all we have. And you have to keep the perspective headed in the right direction at this point, and not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's not here yet.
Well, I'm going to give you some credit for joy because you brought joy to the program by sharing your story. So thank you for the joy you have brought.
Oh, thank you. I am just so grateful for the opportunity to share what's been in me for so long. I don't have the community other than folks like yourself. So I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And Louis, we weren't able to hear a whole lot from you, mainly because we kept making fun of your gray hair. But other than that, but the parts we did hear were wonderful. So we're looking forward to continuing that discussion, especially with Amy next week. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I want to especially thank those in the live stream who jumped in with your questions, your comments. That was always helpful as usual. But especially I want to do my shout out to all of our regular listeners. We really appreciate you. And remind people about the LOA Today app. Be sure that if you have not yet downloaded it, to download it. It's got a lot of great stuff on it, including, by the way, a meditation by David Strickle. Just saying. It's built in as a freebie. So take advantage of that and use it to send in questions and comments to be included on the show. In the meantime, I'll thank you, gentlemen, very much. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Brett. Love your story.